And welcome. Raise Your Inner Game today. I'm David Levin. This is our Friday episode, so we're talking all things inner game. Tuesdays are for sports and sports parenting. Fridays are for everything and everyone. Fridays are for everything and everyone. So how are you today? How are things with your inner game? You feeling good? You feeling stressed, worried? What's going on in there? So for me, I will say pretty good, maybe even better than that. Things are warming up. I'm getting back into a good rhythm. The big deadline projects have finished. I can actually feel a reduced stress level from all that. That's nice. So yeah, pretty good. And I hope it's the same for you. So some things to talk about today. My ups and downs for the week. The role our thoughts play in our happiness. The Trump indictment, sorry about that, but a couple of things to say about that. The mistake we make, wishing for the kinds of things others have. The great relationship we have with our teenagers and how that happened. Another nice challenge and some recommended items. So I'll start with the ups and downs. What things were lifting me up this past week and what things were pulling me down, making things harder. In the ups column for me this week, things are warming up, which I mentioned. That really helps. Still had a couple of nasty days, but the forecast has some 70s coming up in a week. Even just the promise of that makes me happy. I'm also starting to notice the longer days, daylight savings. All of that feels like a lifting of a burden. That's lovely. Had two more ups on the same day this week. Peter's senior project, I mentioned, our senior, another stressful creative deadline has been looming. He gave his presentation this week, and it was just great. It was a complete, lovely success. He felt great. It came off very well. People loved it. And he's done now. This is the first time in 4 months where he hasn't been under a crazy creative deadline of some kind. And all of them on top of his schoolwork. And by the way, I say he, but it's a family project. We're all feeling it big time. But now he can just focus on school and we can focus on our own lives, and everyone is feeling the relief of that. It's fantastic. And then also that same night, he gave a presentation. We had family come in for them. His cousin Ada gave hers that night, same time. Well, at the same time, but same night. It was also great. And then afterward, we all got together at our house for a big family dinner. Didn't even start till like 9 o'clock, which is very late for us, especially on a school night. But it was great. I mean, just exactly what you hope for. The connection, the energy, the fun, the food. Just really, really nice. And then from work, I had a call with one of our Sports Academy coaching students this week. And she was describing how what she'd learned was helping, how she was using it. And I just loved her description so much. It tickled me, sort of lit me up for the whole day. And it's so simple. Again, all of our stuff is. It might not even strike you, but it really got me. So she said she was in a game, and she'd lost a goal. She's on defense. She plays soccer. And she said, so normally when that happens, I immediately start thinking about everything I need to do better next time. Just around and around all over that. And then all of a sudden, it's like 10 minutes of the game are gone, right? And I've been off somewhere in my head. But this time, I just said, nope, we'll talk about that later. I shut it down. Got right back into it, and it was great. You just could not describe the benefits and the difference the Sports Academy training makes any better than that. It gives athletes the ability to control their thoughts and emotions in the moment. And just the way she said it, so immediate and direct and decisive. Nope, we'll talk about that later. The confidence in that. And then, of course, that it works. I mean, it really does. And the joy on her face as she was talking about how different it was. And how great it felt. Again, it sounds like such a small thing, but moments like that are actually everything to an athlete during competition. And it just lit me up to hear her experience that so clearly and see the difference it made for her. So that was very, very lovely. Made me happy. In my downs, this is sort of interesting, but I've been trying to be super sharp with my food intake for the past 2 or 3 weeks. I think I probably mentioned that earlier. And honestly, it's been a bit of a bummer to observe how hard that is. I'll have a couple of, great days and then maybe a little slip, but still, good. and then pretty typically 2 or 3 not really very good at all. But it still feels like I'm working super hard for like a week or 2 and nothing happens. The weight just stays. And that's just, it's really hard. I mean, it's hard in a lot of ways. But the down of it, in the spirit of these ups and downs, is that it's always there as kind of an emotional burden. One way to think about these down items is that they frequently come from things that make us feel threatened or at risk or vulnerable in some way. Anything that triggers some sort of fear will pull us down into a lower state and change our thoughts and actions and just how we feel about everything. So even on the days when I'm feeling strong with my intake, I'm still hungry, right? Distractingly, painfully hungry a lot of the time. And some days I can celebrate that sort of and reframe it as a good thing, but at an unconscious level, it still feels like something's wrong and that I'm in some, sort of danger. So that is adding to my overall inner gravity, pulling me away, making it harder to be my better self all the time, constantly. And that's a real factor. Separate from the task itself of controlling my intake, it makes everything harder. Like I have a headache, or like I'm sick or something. You know what that's like, right? It's just always there. So that's been my down this past week, wrestling with managing my appetite. I will say this, the good news, just the last couple of days, I've tried something just a little bit different, a little tweak to it. I'll tell you about it later maybe. And the last couple, 3 days have been quite great. And I love that. So anyway, those are my ups and downs for this week. Next up, our quote of the week. All right, our quote of the week. This week, we'll hear from Marcus Aurelius. Marcus was the Roman emperor from 161 to 180 AD, so a long time ago, almost 2,000 years ago. It's crazy. Also a Stoic philosopher, which is how we tend to hear about him now because of all the renewed interest in Stoicism. So Marcus's quote for us this week is, "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts." The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. And it's interesting. You can read this sort of inspirational, like think better thoughts, you'll be happier. And of course, that's true. But I read it as just an objective observation about the nature of the inner game. Your happiness, my happiness too, all of our happiness, from one moment to the next, is completely dictated, literally defined by your thoughts in that moment. If I'm worrying about something, I'm not happy in that moment. I'm worried. If I am angry or fearful or even just distracted, mindlessly scrolling through my Instagram feed, those are not states of happiness. But when I'm thankful, hopeful, appreciative, optimistic, when I'm doing something I enjoy, and even doing nothing, like quieting my thoughts, those are happy states. So yes, thinking better, higher quality thoughts leads to greater happiness. And we can just take that as an aspiration. But even better is to let the observation give us insight into how to do it. We need to learn to observe our thoughts rather than be completely consumed by them, to add a layer of self-awareness to our moment-to-moment experience so we can notice when we're in a thought that's unhelpful and step back from it and lift ourselves to a happier place. That's when it really gets exciting, when we learn how to take control of our inner lives and keep ourselves up where we want to be, where we feel better about ourselves. So anyway, that is our quote for this week. Marcus Aurelius, "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts." All right, think about that. We'll move on to our top stories. All right, top stories. Funny thing to start. Last week, I said I just didn't really want to talk about anything. I was just tired of everything going on, just fed up with it, right? And the funniest thing happened. Another podcast I listened to, Firewall with Bradley Tusk, his episode last week was exactly the same. He came on, they usually talk about all these things. He's got a list of all the things he wants to talk about. He came on and said, I'm just sick of everything. I'm bored with it. There's nothing I want to talk about. And I heard him say that. I laughed out loud. I was like, that's just so strange to be in such the exact same kind of place emotionally with what was going on. Anyway, what I want to talk about this week is the same thing everyone's talking about this week, which is, of course, Donald Trump getting indicted in New York. Again, everyone's talking about it. I don't have much to add, certainly not a legal or political expert of any sort, though I do listen almost exclusively to legal and political experts on their podcasts. But the thing that strikes me about this week is why I'm happy about it, why it feels like such a relief, even though things are likely going to get crazier as things move forward. And of course, part of it is just that he might finally be held accountable for something. It's just been so depressing to see him over and over flout every norm and standard of decency and the core pillars of our legal system and democracy and seem to get away with it. It just hurts at a very deep level. So finally seeing something that looks like it might bring an end to that does make me happy. There's no doubt. But on another level, the relief comes because now the question is in the court. All his bullshit tactics, his lies, his attacks, his bullying, his threats and name-calling, none of that can work for him there. There, you win or lose on facts and reason and evidence and truth. I mean, that's a little idealistic, maybe, especially when you think about the things our Supreme Court has been doing. But still, that's the idea. And another big part of what's been so hard these last 8 years, or however long it's been, is the gaslighting and the Orwellian double talk. And again, that it seems to work. But the idea that he will now have to deal in facts and evidence and reality. And by extension, our conversations about his actions will be judged on those standards. I just feel like a weight has been lifted off of me, like sanity in our public life is, maybe poking its little head back in through the curtain, shining a little light into the darkness. Again, who knows what's going to happen and how it's all going to play out. It's an insane situation in so many ways. But I'm just noticing this feeling in myself, this feeling of hope and relief, and I think this is the main part of it. When you take a question or an issue or a conflict and you bring it into the realm of legal thought, not just to specific laws, but just the whole framework and system of reason and facts and evidence and rules, it's a world you can understand and discuss and believe in and trust and get clarity around. And we just haven't been in that world for what feels like forever. So it just feels a little bit hopeful to me that we might be getting back to it. On the case itself, it does point out again how completely full of shit his defenders are. They claim it's an abuse of the system. But remember, Michael Cohen went to jail for this. Not for something like it, for the same exact project. They are co-conspirators. So if it's a crime for one, why isn't it a crime for the other? It is, of course, by definition. That's what a conspiracy means. And so if it is a crime for both of them, why shouldn't they both go to jail? Isn't the real abuse of the system, well, for one, attacking the prosecutor, trying to interfere with the process, yes, but also that one conspirator would go to jail, but the richer, more powerful one wouldn't. What they're really saying, and it's the only claim they have, is that he should be above the law. But that's not what our country is about. It's not how it works, and no one should want that. Not if you believe in the rule of law and democracy. They're completely incompatible with each other. Again, it's no surprise that's who they are, but it does flush them out in an especially effective way. And I'm actually, again, sort of looking forward to having all the gaslighting, performative bullshit held up to the light of reason and evidence. It's not going to go away, of course, but I just feel like it's going to be a little bit less dominating and winning of the public discussion. Bottom line, folks, if you believe he's innocent, if you believe it's all unfair, make your case in court. Let it play out. Follow the rules of evidence. If you're right, you should win, right? Let's see how that goes for you. By the way, one element of this that I'm especially interested in is if he's going to basically blow himself up by not being able to control himself. He has one mode for things like this: attack, threaten, bully, lie. That's who he is, and it's worked for him his entire life. But it actually makes things worse for him in court. It seems to me that this case, this relatively small case, could turn into something that truly breaks him if he can't control his impulses, and we've never seen him be able to do that before. So that's just another interesting sort of unknown about this that could turn into something quite surprising and important. Last thing, maybe the most important thing, for the rest of us, we will need to chill out and be patient. And I'm mostly talking to myself here. These things take time, longer than we think they should. I'm expecting to be helped a lot by the legal podcasts I listen to, especially Cafe Insider with Preet Bharara. Very helpful for setting realistic expectations and staying calm. And of course, Trump is presumed innocent until convicted by unanimous jury. It's a high bar. It's never a sure thing. So patience, patience, everyone, me especially. All right, enough about that. Next up, Inner Game Gold. All right, Inner Game Gold. These are the ideas and the concepts I come back to over and over to help me stay on track. This week we have a new one. The other day I was thinking about this, and I remember there were a few other ideas that helped me a lot. I come back to again over and over. And this is the first of that batch. So the idea is, you can't wish you had one part of someone's life without wanting all of their life. So for example, you see a famous person, and you think it would be great to have that beautiful house and those cars and their clothes and have people love you like that. And of course, that can all sound great, but you also have to remember what the rest of their life looks like and think about whether you would actually want that. Years ago, when I was pushing the hardest on my music career back in Minneapolis, there was a guy, a manager, a club owner, sort of a friend. We'd known each other a long time. He booked me at his club now and then. I was pushing him for something, probably another show or a contact or something, some sort of help. And he said, and I never forgot this, he said, look, I know you want this. I get it. But I just have to tell you, you don't want it. You would hate it. You're a fairly normal person. You have a good life. Everyone I know who has got to the next level, it ruins them. Everybody wants something from them all of a sudden. They start to not trust people. They build walls up around themselves. It's a nightmare. And you really don't want it. That is exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm so grateful for him for telling me that. I've watched this golf documentary. I think I mentioned it. Full Swing. These guys, amazing looking lives, right? Private jets, beautiful families, incredible homes. But they are away from home all the time. 4 or 5 days a week after week, not just in the office, out of town, right? There's no way they have a real connection with their kids and their spouses. Just not to mention the insane level of pressure of competing at that level. CEOs, same thing, 100 hours a week, typically crazy, right? Full obsessive involvement in that role. No control over your life. Sure, you're making millions of dollars, but you have no actual life. It just sounds miserable to me. Celebrities, movie stars, they can't leave the house. They can't trust anyone. My son showed me the Instagram account of someone he really looks up to, genuinely. He loves his look, his style. He loves what seems to be his life in general. And of course, I agree, it does look great. But when you think about it, or when I think about it anyway, he obviously is basically living with a photographer and a videographer. His everyday is focused on how he looks, what he's wearing, how to get good shots, and how to get more people to like him. I almost cannot imagine a more miserable existence. It looks great, but what you see is an illusion. One last example. I heard the head of racing for Mercedes-Benz say that he's never seen a driver who was truly great who wasn't also a broken person, not psychologically healthy. No healthy person, emotionally healthy, would work that hard at the expense of everything else in their life. The only people who have that sort of drive, no pun intended, also have a deep, like unhealthy need for affirmation and approval and to prove themselves to others. So again, maybe you want that, success you see, that kind of looks like might be glamorous, although it's also super dangerous and high stress. You think you want that, but do you want to be a broken person? I don't think so. So anyway, you can really see the power of this idea. It's easy to see a small part of someone's life that's attractive and to wish you had that and to think you'd be happier if you did. But the reality is that, at least for the normal things we long for and we see everywhere, more money, nicer things, more affirmation, chances are really good that we don't want what goes along with them. We just really don't. We would not be happier. It might even be a huge mistake. So that's a lot on that one, but I think it's really helpful to keep in mind. I know it helps me for sure. Maybe more in the context of our kids at this point. We worry about their superficial dreams. But I think for us too, we're probably not going to chase a dream like that, right, at this point in our lives. But I know for a fact that people can feel maybe like we've been less successful than we wanted on those kind of metrics, or that we should have been, that we somehow failed or come up short in our life. And I just think that is probably almost never really true. It only looks true when we compare it to things like this, to others, and how we imagine their lives to be. So reminding ourselves of this idea, I think, helps remind us of that and feel better about the wonderful, rich life we actually have. So that's our inner game gold for the week. You can't wish for one part of someone's life without wanting all of it. Next up, raise your outer game. Okay, raise your outer game. This, of course, is where we talk about things we care about in our outer life, our health, our relationships, our finances. This week I want to talk about parenting, and specifically parenting teens. We have two of them now, 14 and 18. I think it's fair to say things are going great with both of them. Better than you would ever think possible, based on all the horror stories and jokes and just the conventional wisdom about, such things, right? None of that has been true for us for more than a minute at any time. It really hasn't. So why would that be? I'm sure conventional wisdom wouldn't be there if it weren't true for most of the time. So how do you explain our experience? I'm sure it's many things, but the one that comes directly to mind for me is a book, and actually really two books, both by Kim John Payne. The most direct one is The Soul of Discipline. That's the one that helped me transition my parenting as Peter moved into the teen years. And that's kind of the core of that book. You learn how to adjust your parenting approach based on their age and what the appropriate style for that sort of developmental period. If I hadn't done that, hadn't changed my own approach, I'm sure things would not be where they are now. The other book is his foundational book, Simplicity Parenting. The concepts in there lay the groundwork for everything else. And again, they've had a huge impact on how we've parented our kids. They've helped us stay super connected to them. They've helped them be happier in themselves. I really can't imagine not having the insights available over the years. And I can see a direct line from the choices we've made based on what we've learned to the relationships we have now with them and the people they are becoming. Full disclosure, Kim is a friend. I worked with him for 8 years, helping with the online side of his business. But I started working with him because I was a fan, and I still am. I'm just truly grateful for having discovered his material. So I recommend it. Get those books for you or for anyone you know with kids. Simplicity Parenting, The Soul of Discipline, links in the show notes. You can thank me later. All right, that's Raise Your Outer Game for this week. Next up, our Charging Station Challenge. Last week we had you do something nice and easy. Just take a 10-minute outdoor walk every day. It's one of the best things you can do for yourself. In many ways, it boosts your mood, boosts your energy, boosts your clarity of thought. If you're working on something, it's the best way to make a breakthrough in your thinking, come up with new ideas. An outdoor walk is almost like magic. the effect it has on you. In fact, I like it so much, we're going to do it again this week. Keep up the good work, as I like to say. So that's it. This week's challenge. Continue last week's challenge. Enjoy the weather if it's warming up where you are. 10-minute outdoor walk every day. And of course, let us know how it's going with you with a post in the community. If you're not in the community yet, click the link in the notes. It's free. Just register. You can go straight into the challenge. We'd love to have you join us. And that's it for this week's Charging Station Challenge. Nice and quick and easy. Next up, highly recommended. Okay, highly recommended. So again, these are the things I'm crazy about right now. Books, shows, gadgets, etc. Things I love and recommend. So I'm going to continue on with the Kim John Payne books I mentioned earlier. Simplicity Parenting, The Soul of Discipline. Best parenting books ever. Hugely helpful in our lives, especially now that we have teens. The other parenting book I recommend is for brand new ones called The Contented Little Baby Book. We got that when Francis was born, and sleeping, naps, all that was just night and day compared to with Peter. Oh my goodness, what a difference that book made for us. So, links to all three in the notes. Excellent gifts for yourself and any other parents in your life. And that's it for this week's show. If you like what you heard, please do tell your friends, invite them to join us, and rate and review the show wherever you get your podcast. It helps more people find the show and get the mental game boost we all need. If you have teenagers in sports, we have our first group coaching class starting this coming Monday. It's pretty exciting. Registration's open through tomorrow night, Saturday night. It's a great opportunity. The full Sports Academy training, 60% less than private coaching. So there's a link in the notes. Check that out right away if you're interested. Also, check out our Mental Game Starter Kit. It's a great set of resources to help you get started on the path of helping your child boost their mental game. Just go to raiseinnergame.com, scroll to the bottom, you can learn about it and register there. All free, of course. If you'd like to support the show so we can keep things ad-free, please click the Buy Me a Coffee link below, and thank you for that. For more mental game goodness, please join the community I mentioned for the challenge, the Raise Your Inner Game Charging Station. Click the link here or go to raiseinnergame.com/community. Also totally free. You'll love it. I know you will. Also, if you're listening to this on audio but you like video, we post all our episodes on our YouTube channel as well. There's a link to that in the show notes. And finally, we will close with Leo Tolstoy, again from the Raise Your Inner Game book. The ultimate purpose in life is to serve humanity. Ultimate purpose in life is to serve humanity. That's what we're here for, and that's what we're doing. We're serving the people in our lives. Super important. Keep up the good work, and we'll see you next time.